Hi, I've recently had a few requests from members of the group to try and provide some writing tips and also to look at some more satirical cartoons and visual metaphors. So I thought I'd combine all three of those aspects into one task. So something I often do with students is brainstorm vocabulary in response to a stimulus image before we attempt a writing on that image. So a friend actually sent me this image and I thought, wow, what a powerful image. You know, it really sums up the Zeitgeist. And Zeitgeist is a German word that means the feeling of the time, right? It's a great word that doesn't really have an equivalent in English. So I might even put that in my table. All right, Zeitgeist in the miscellaneous section, and I'll explain what I mean by that a little bit later. Alright, so you look at the image. How would you understand this image? For starters, you would need to have knowledge of historical context to know about the Statue of Liberty and what it represents. And you'd also have to have knowledge of current context, which I think is quite important, and I think most students will know about the COVID pandemic and the effect that's having on the world, and in particular America. Alright, so I think before writing about this, you might sit down and think about some words you'd be able to use to embellish your writing, to improve its quality in comparison to other writers. So I first thought, well, let's look at the statue. Alright, what are some other words for statue? So what comes to mind? Behemoth. Possibly behemoth has a slightly negative connotation, so maybe that's not the best word to use here, but it's still an impressive word. Maybe we can use colossus instead. Right. Be very careful with the spelling of colossus, alright, because many students will do two L's and one S, alright, it's a bit of a tricky word. And as well as knowing the noun form, it's probably useful to know the adjective form, colossal. I find many students just use the one form of a word and it gets very repetitive. So good to get into the practice of using more than one form of a word, and even identifying that one form isn't as common as another. For example, I think most students would know the word anonymous, the adjective, but not many students would know the word anonymity, which is the noun form. And I find anonymity to be more useful, you know, in constructing metaphors and so on. You know, a cloak of anonymity. The internet provides us with a cloak of anonymity. Alright, what are some other words I can use here? This is one of my favorites. Edifice. Alright, I find myself using edifice a lot myself in my own writing. Great word to construct metaphors with. And another favorite, monolith, alright, which is usually a naturally big rocky formation, but I think you could use it in a writing about the Statue of Liberty. Alright, so let's move on to liberty. We've got a few good words there to describe statue. What does liberty mean? Freedom. It probably doesn't qualify as an impressive word, so what are some other good words? Independence. Alright, independence, and then you can even link that to the American context, you know, the Declaration of Independence. Alright, another good word, autonomy. Autonomy, that means freedom of action, and we can do the adjective form as well, autonomous. Alright, just to remind us to use those words in there. Alright, let's go to the lady. Lady is chosen in the statue. What is the lady? She's symbolic of a lot of things. Alright, so very important students understand symbolism. I think a good way to explain symbolism is to look at common symbols in stories and so on. So you might look at say the seasons representing stages of life. So a young child is in the springtime of their life. An elderly person is in the winter of their life, you know, the winter of their discontent, to use an allusion. Right, so she's symbolic. Now another thing you can do is use lots of synonyms. So symbolic and personify. She personifies things. She embodies things. She encapsulates things. So you have all these verbs that you could use, you know, rather than just saying the same verb, symbolize or personify over and over. All right, and the torch. So what are some possible verbs you could use to describe the torch? Well, the state that she's in now, perhaps you want to link a word like extinguish. All right, her torch has been extinguished. We need to rekindle her torch. All right, and you could link the torch to the feelings, the emotions it's supposed to represent. Alright, now I paused the video there for a moment just so I could readjust the table so I had more space to put my miscellaneous words in there. Alright, so now I'm going to add to that section. Now I'm going to think of all of these things that I've already spoken about. So what's happened to liberty? Alright, what's happened to the lady here? Now how do you even attain liberty to begin with? Great word that again links to American history, emancipate. Right, to set free from slavery. And if you wanted to be less specific, you might use a word like extricate, right, which means just to set free from a trap. Right, now what has happened to the statue, both literally and figuratively? You could say it has eroded, right, it's been worn away, it has begun to atrophy, which is the muscles wearing away, so you're personifying the lady of liberty. It has suffered from attrition, again, a wearing away, attenuation, another very similar word, which means the wearing away, the slimming of, all of these negative connotation words, and the diminution. So there I'm using a more obscure form of the word diminish, right? I'm using the noun form. So what do we need to do to Lady Liberty? Right? How can we rectify the situation? Why is she wearing, or why is she in this predicament? I guess predicament's a good word we could throw in there as well. Predicament. It's like a dilemma, a bad situation. Well, we need to, and this is a good word because it's very hard to spell, resuscitate her. Okay, that's what's happening literally in the picture if you interpret it literally. And what we can do once we're using a re word, you will find this might lead you into using a whole plethora of re words. Revitalize, rejuvenate. I'm saying I've misspelled revitalize because it's must be on the American spelling, so we use an S in British English. Rehabilitate. Alright, I'm going to run out of space here in my table soon because these words are so long, alright, which must mean that they're fairly impressive. Recuperate. Alright, and then I wanted to do one more. Let's see if it'll let me stay on the page. No, it won't, so I'll pause the video for a moment. Alright, so I just readjusted the table slightly so I have a little bit more space to work with. So yeah, you can see how many re-words I got there. Resuscitate, revitalize, rejuvenate, rehabilitate, recuperate. Alright, all essentially mean the same thing. So it's very good to have a wide repertoire of words so you don't repeat yourself. Alright, another good word you could throw in there is convalesce. Alright, that means much the same as rehabilitate. Alright, so I hope you're getting to see a pattern that these are a lot of what would be considered to be difficult words that you could use in this writing, that you could use as the foundation of a writing piece in response to a stimulus such as this. Alright, and so one last group of words I'll throw in there, the miscellaneous, to describe now how the lady looks to me. She looks moribund. Alright, she looks at the point of death. How did she come into this situation? She was encumbered, that needs to be weighed down. She's grown susceptible, right? Vulnerable would be another word you could throw in there probably. And what has she become susceptible to or vulnerable to? Ignorance. You could throw that in there as a really cynical take on the current American situation. So I think you can see there, before I begin my writing, if I were to spend a few minutes thinking of some words I could use to respond to this image, I've come up with a whole myriad of what would be considered to be impressive vocabulary, I think. And trying to get you to see that there's a systematic approach you can use to this. Like, see, I would have done this so many times that if I had to respond to this topic, I don't need to draw up this chart. All right, it's like oh yeah, okay, I get what this picture's about straight away, and I know what words I can use to hopefully impress someone, to persuade them of my perspective on it. But if you were to do this, and you could do this style of planning, of brainstorming vocabulary, you could pretty much do it for any visual metaphor or any satirical cartoon, and you could come up with a lot of words there, I think. Because if you just leave it until you're actually writing the piece and you haven't yet assimilated that vocabulary into your own repertoire, you're just going to go for simple choices, right? So I might not even use all of these words. See, I might say, behemoth doesn't work, it's too negative. Colossus is good, I'll use Colossus. But I really like edifice, all right, because I could then link edifice to emancipate, all right, if I wanted to use some alliteration. You know, this edifice embodies our emancipation, and you've got 3 E words in there, right? So there's a method to it, there's a pattern you're using even in writing. All right, anyway, so I'll put this sheet I've used, I'll put it in the comments for this video. All right, I'll put 2 versions. I'll put one where it's empty so you can have your child have a go at it and see what words they come up with. And I'll put this one where I've put all the words that I've got there, right? And if you need any further explanation of any of the words, such as Zeitgeist, as I said, that's a German word that means the feeling of a time. Very impressive word to use in a writing like this. I don't think many children of around year 5 age would know it. So if you want any more edification on those words, yeah, feel free to ask me, and let me know in the comments if you think this video has been helpful. Thank you.